What is going on, guys? TJ here with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to bring you the first video on the Daily Grind Fantasy Sports YouTube page of 2021. I hope everybody had a very safe New Year's last night, bringing in the new year, obviously getting rid of trash 2020. I know it was a tough year for a lot of you, but keep persevering and, continue to just take it day by day. And, I'm excited to see what 2021 has to bring, not only for everybody, but for Daily Grind Fantasy Sports. I want to touch base real quick before we dive into this hectic 7 p.m. 10-game slate to start the new year. I want to touch base on some success that we did have last night. There were a lot of guys in the Discord, Patreon members that did make a lot of money. One of them being my man Elite, who I think I jinxed. He was in the running in, as you can see, this contest here, the $365 entry, 100K to first. He, honest to God, legitimately would have won this if Brandon Ingram did not get tossed in the third quarter. Nobody above him had Ingram. He was in second place for most of the night, got very unlucky, and ended up walking out with $13,000, so definitely nothing to complain about, but the what-ifs were definitely there. We had a ton of other success. We got B-Mac here, $110, cashing in all of his double-ups. Mr. Clutch turning $6 into $57.50. We have Troy here turning $7.60 into $22. I mean, just a lot of good scores that we saw. And then me, I had another good night. I topped $1,000, so I was definitely happy with that. So yeah, super excited for what we have here in the future, and I'm ready to forget about 2020, including last night, and move on to tonight. And everybody, what better way to start 2021 than with the Washington Wizards chalk night? So that's the first team I definitely want to hone in on. My guy Meansy already waking up at I don't know what time and locking in Bradley Beal and Raul Neto, and why not? So if we look back at the one game in which Russell Westbrook sat. So it is a back-to-back, so we are expecting Russell Westbrook to sit. If we do go back and look at that game, right, Raul Neto started at the point guard position, played 32 minutes. We saw Bradley Beal play 39 minutes. Avdia played 36 minutes. So we had a bunch of guys on the Wizards playing a crazy amount of minutes. And so the two people that I'm obviously looking at right now are going to be Bradley Beal at 9,400 and Raul Neto at 3,400. Raul Neto is 100% a lock for me if he is going to get that 30 minutes. Sitting at 3,400, far too cheap in what could be a pretty competitive match against Minnesota, game against Minnesota, seeing as they are still without Karl Anthony Towns. If we look at our injury here, boom, and a Kogi as well. So no Cat. No Russell Westbrook. Definitely could be a potentially ugly game, but the over-under is currently sitting at 233. So there will be some points that are scored. So I'm obviously looking at Bradley Beal and Raul Neto, as Chips is barking in the background. Without Westbrook on the court this year, Beal gets a 1.6% usage bump and a 1.31 fantasy point per minute. Rates out to a 5.4 on our sheet, which is really good for somebody that is over a 9K price tag. And as you see, Raul Neto at 3,400 gets a 1.1% usage rate. Again, these sample size are minimal. Neto's was 70 minutes, which I don't hate, and Bradley Beal's was approaching 100 minutes. So definitely something we can work off of. Neto at a 1.13 fantasy point per minute. I don't think he can hold up that type of production, but even still at 3,400, definitely should be able to pay off his price tag in the given minutes. So I really like him. I jumped straight into Washington. I didn't even go over the slate as a whole. So now we're going to backtrack a little bit because that is where the chalk is most likely going to come from. We have the Grizzlies and Charlotte sitting at a 219 over-under. Celtics and Pistons at a 215. We got the Heat and Dallas at 225.5. We again have Atlanta and the Nets on this slate sitting at 244.5, currently opened up at 247. We just saw them play. We know there's going to be endless points, I guess I would say. We got that Wizards and Minnesota game like I just talked about sitting at 233. Lakers and Spurs sitting at a 231 over-under. Bulls and Bucks sitting at a 232.5. We got the Suns and we have the Nuggets sitting at 225.5. We got the Clippers and Utah opening up at 226 all the way down to 221. So that's a wild jump, especially this early in the morning. And then last but not least, the late night hammer at 10:30 between the Trailblazers and Golden State sitting at a 232.5, already up 2.5 points. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. So the other game I do want to touch base on is definitely going to be the Chicago and Milwaukee game. 15-point favorites are the Milwaukee Bucks, which is definitely something I'm scared of. I don't know why I have the... Oh, yeah, that was from Okay. So definitely something I am scared of. But we saw the Bulls yesterday without the likes of guys like Lauri Markkanen, Satoransky. Who else was out for them yesterday? Where are they? There's so many games now that, I'm used to that 4-game slate, and I can't fit there. Archie Diacono, Hutchinson. So all these guys out for COVID-like reasons. So I definitely think there's some value here in Chicago. I am looking at a guy like Otto Porter at 5,600. I'm looking at a guy like Thad Young coming off the bench at 3,500. So if we look at the box score from yesterday, like I was alluding to, 9-man rotation. I would bring up Popcorn, but they don't have yesterday's games on there yet, so unfortunately I can't. Um, Thad Young, 27 minutes off the bench, was definitely productive in what was a competitive game against the Wizards. Otto Porter looked fantastic at 31 minutes. Patrick Williams kind of fell by the wayside, which I thought might happen with the return of Thad Young. But, 18 minutes is something that I would avoid in cash. Wendell Carter, 23 minutes, definitely was in foul trouble last night, as you can see. So I definitely think there's some interesting value here on the Chicago Bulls side, just given the injuries or the guys from COVID. But with that being said, I would definitely tread lightly because of this matchup against Milwaukee. It could definitely be a blowout. So definitely something I want to see what's going on with the ownership before I dive in. So looking at this slate from a whole, I definitely think the Wizards are going to be chalking Bradley Beal and Raul Neto. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jason Tatum is definitely somebody I have interest in again at 8,600. Was 8,600 against Memphis, carried some ownership, let a lot of people down because it was the Jaylen Brown show. Only played like 7 minutes in that second half, didn't touch the floor in the fourth quarter, only took 12 shots, which is something we're not used to seeing from Jason Tatum. So I love Tatum tonight in a bounce back game, just not really, too hot on that over-under, sitting at 215. When you can go to this Atlanta and Brooklyn game where the prices have come up, but not too much. So I'm definitely going to be looking again at a guy, KD at 9,100. As we see against Atlanta last game, almost notched a triple-double at 8,400 in 35 minutes, attempted 22 shots, was definitely more aggressive from the beginning, which is something I like. I think he had 7 field goal attempts actually in that first quarter. Or he might have been 4 of 10. I remember he was 2 of 7 at one point in the first quarter. He might have finished at 4 of 10. I think he was 2 of 7. So yeah, Durant is definitely somebody that I'm going to want to be targeting, most likely in cash at 9,100. Just given the game script that we saw against Atlanta, the number of points we know we're going to see. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be interested in. I want to see the ownership on these guys because, again, this is definitely going to be a game I want to target in tournaments if some of these guys are coming in at low owned. Kyrie burned a lot of guys last time at 8,900 in the uptick against Atlanta. 27 shots. The opportunities were there, so I wouldn't mind going back to the well. Kyrie at 9,300. I know Joe Harris shot the ball very well. 5,100. We love attacking shooters in these type of games, so I wouldn't mind taking a chance on him. Most likely in tournaments at 5,300. Jared Allen balled out down low off the bench, 33 DraftKings points in 57 at 5,700. And then on the other side, TLC actually got the start too, so definitely something else we need to monitor. Back down to 3,600 if he does get the start. I mean, it is tough to say what kind of value and usage these guys are going to show when they're on the floor with Kyrie and KD. It's a completely different ball game. I mean, you look at the game in which KD and Kyrie sat. Against Memphis, and TLC when he started had a 24% usage rate. Now with Kyrie and KD on the floor, it's only 9% usage rate. So probably more of a tournament play for me for TLC just because, the ball hogs are back. But this is definitely a game I want to target. And then on the other side of the ball, we have Atlanta. Trae Young, again, will be probably one of my favorite GPP picks. I'm assuming he'll come in undervalued and lower owned on today's slate. 10-game slate, there's a lot of value, and there's going to be a lot of ownership to go around. So I think we're going to see a lot of low-owned players just because, last night we had a 5-game slate. Tonight's a completely different story. So, yeah, Trae Young's definitely going to be somebody I want to target in tournaments, as will John Collins. We saw John Collins against Brooklyn last game absolutely feast. Price tag barely came up at 7,200, so definitely somebody that I'll be interested in. We saw Bogey have a fantastic shooting game against Brooklyn, 14 attempts, 33.5 DraftKings points at 4,800. So I really like him, even though he got that price bump. I'm still not scared off of him, especially with Gallinari being out tonight as well. That's just somebody else that was getting – Rondo's out as well, too. I forgot about that. So that's, 15 and what? Gallinari was playing 25, 26 minutes. So that's 40 minutes that need to be dispersed between these guys. So I really like Bogdy. I love John Collins, and I really like Trae Young as well. So guys, this is kind of just like an introduction type video for tonight's slate. We don't really have any concrete ownerships or anything like that. And I want to go back and run numbers when we do have ownerships and we have all the late breaking injury news that we still are awaiting. Killian Hayes is somebody that is questionable against the Celtics, and we do see Blake Griffin is out. So there's definitely going to be some value here. Josh Jackson, if he starts at the 3, is definitely going to be somebody that I am interested in. Again, probably more tournament plays. Josh Jackson has gotten that price increase, and rightfully so. He's been very good for Detroit so far to start the year. I'm going to be interested to see what the starting lineup's going to look like. Jeremy Grant approaching 7K, but this is probably going to be more of tournament plays for me, just based off of the over-under. Mason Plumlee is a guy that's flourished with Blake Griffin on the sideline, so I might have some interest in him at 5,700 and Josh Jackson at 5,200, maybe as last pieces in cash, but I definitely think there's some better value out there. So we're waiting on Killian Hayes. This is going to be an interesting team to target. Could be a blowout potentially against the Celtics. We saw what they just did against Memphis. Memphis is another team that I didn't touch base on. Grayson Allen looking like he's going to sit against Charlotte. So, yeah, that brings up – now this is another guy I want to talk about. Bane for Memphis. Again, another low over-under. But if Desmond Bane's going to start at 3,700, another guy I think is going to be viable in cash. So I'm keeping my eye out here. Dylan Brooks shot the ball terribly against the Celtics, only at 6,300 against Charlotte. They're going to need more from him in order to stay competitive and not get blown out. So this might be a team that I look to target in tournaments. I could definitely see them carrying some ownership as well. Just look at all those injuries they have. Jaren Jackson still out, Melton, John Moran, obviously, and then Grayson Allen with tweaking the ankle. A ton of interest in Atlanta and Brooklyn, and rightfully so. Interest in Chicago, worried about the blowout against the Bucks, but again, definitely some value there. Ton of value here on the Washington side, especially with Westbrook most likely sitting on a back-to-back. Minnesota, I'll probably have some interest in a guy like Naz Reid. He started that second half last night and 2 nights ago in his chalk debut of the season with Cat being deemed out. Played the first 3.5 minutes, was getting absolutely torched by Serge Ibaka when they played the Clippers and did go back on the floor. So he needs to step it up defensively. I definitely think this is a matchup that he can do that against Thomas Bryant. So hopefully Naz Reid plays more than 20 minutes. I fully expect him to. If LeBron sits, which I highly doubt, this will be a game that we look to target. No real injury news here in Denver. Jermichael Green looks like he's ready to go, and Jamal Murray should be good to go as well. No injury news here. The Clippers, we got Kawhi back. Utah, never hurt. Nobody except for Mike Conley, but he's good to go so far. And then we get the debut in the late night hammer of Draymond Green. Pascal, if he is out, doesn't really matter because we have Draymond back in the picture. So from a broad standpoint of the slate right now, I think that there's going to be a lot of chalk in Washington, mostly on Westbrook and Bradley. Not Westbrook. With Westbrook out, on Bradley Beal and Raul Neto. A lot of chalk is going to come from this Atlanta-Brooklyn game, just solely based on the the over-under that we're currently seeing is sky high. I think there's going to be some value in Detroit if Killian Hayes sits, and there already is some with Blake Griffin being out. I also like Tatum at 8,600. Lakers and Spurs is definitely going to be more of a tournament play for me. And then there was one other team, Minnesota, Naz Reid. I think he'll carry some ownership as well. And Memphis is going to have some value even in that low over-under just because of the amount of injuries that they do have. So, guys, I'm going to end it here. Matt and I will be going live tonight. I have Matt back, so we will have way more information for you guys later. Slate starts at 7. We'll probably be going live around 5:30. Lot to cover, and I'm sure we're going to get more injury news as the day goes on. So I hope everybody enjoys their New Year's. Chips is going crazy, so it's a good time for me to get off the computer. So I'll catch you guys tonight. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe. Throw on that notification bell if you don't already have it on, so when we do go live, you get that notification. You can be in there asking us questions. All right, Chips, I got to go, guys. Enjoy your day.